Born in Buttstädt, Thuringia, Thomas Krüger completed his apprenticeship in processing plastic. Afterwards, he studied Lutheran theology and worked as a curate in Eisenach and Berlin. In 1989, he was co-founder of the Social Democratic Party, SDP, in East Germany. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, Thomas Krüger crossed the border Western Berlin intentionally at checkpoint Charlie, as he wanted to have exactly this stamp in his passport. From January 11th to January 24th, 1991, he was the last temporary mayor of Eastern Berlin. Then he became senator for family and youth in the reunited state government of all of Berlin. From 1994 until 1998, Thomas Krüger was member of the Bundestag in Bonn. Since 2000, he is the president of the Federal Agency for Civic Education. The 3rd of October was a Wednesday. With the entry of the German Democratic Republic to the Federal Republic of Germany, the reunification was formally completed. How did your working life change from the 2nd to the 1st of October?
Die Zäsur in meinem Arbeitsalltag.
The break in my working life took place already on October 1st. In these days, I was Deputy Lord Mayor and City Councillor for Internal Affairs in East Berlin. So we were responsible together with the West Berlin Senate for security. Police sovereignty passed into the hands of the Berlin Senate on October 1st. So we could manage security issues as the entire Berlin state government, East and West. That was a big challenge. And from then on, it went on as it were, 16 hours workday. Not a bit different after and before October 3rd. Those were days on which whole years passed. The change, the peaceful revolution, turned our lives right side up again. It was a challenge for each person involved, and many of them will look back on the euphoric days with pleasure.
Gerne an die Euphorie der damaligen Tage.
In what way was the military and the US administration still involved in the realization of the unification from the two parts of the city?
Berlin war ja unter dem
The four-power agreement on Berlin had divided Berlin. East Berlin was under the Soviet administration. Meanwhile, the Western allies were responsible for West Berlin. So I had only personally and friendly contact with the US military and receptions in West Berlin. My interlocutors were sitting in the Soviet embassy unter den Linden. The special closeness strengthened the friendly relation between West Berlin and the United States of America. Which changes of this relationship between Berlin and the USA did you recognize on the political level?
Also für mich war eigentlich die USA.
For me, the driving force that supported the unification process within the four power were the USA. For Berlin as well as throughout Germany. I could fall back on an old friendship. An employee of the American Embassy in East Berlin, Walter Andrew Sisson, is a good old friend. I visited him often in the beginning of the 80s, even to babysit his children nearby in the Leipziger Straße. We exchanged experiences. He's an old Woodstock veteran, of course, as well our music. We met each other again in 1990 when he worked for the American Embassy in Bonn. Quite early we talked about the planned 2+4 agreement. He moved forward carefully, sounding out if the idea went down well to the civil rights activists in East Berlin, which were part of the new persons in charge. We had discussions and cut to the chase. For us in East Berlin, and if you will, the civil rights movement, the Americans had been the big synonym for freedom. I think we could say that a lot of the East Berlin people had more of a transatlantic orientation than towards a German unification. You have to see that we, the civil rights activists, fought for a democratic GDR and not for reunification. This one was added later by the pressure on the streets and the current political development.
Die kam erst später dazu, durch die Straße, durch die allgemeinen politischen Entwicklungen.
Which changes of this relationship did you recognize on personal level?
Ich hatte
In those days, I was in contact with a lot of the protagonists which partly are living nowadays in Germany again. Another good friend is G. Day Bindenagel, holding at the University Bonn the chair called John F. Kennedy. Of course, we resumed the experiences when we met again. I believe in the inviolability of the closeness between those people who experienced the unification process and the civil rights activists. It will last a lifetime. We had the motivation to establish contacts between young people to make each of them open for the other country. So I worked as a senator for youth a lot in enhancing the transatlantic youth exchange between Berlin and the USA. The USA itself invited me in 1995 to participate in a young leadership program. During this stay, I got a first-hand impression of the USA, and I learned that the USA has many facets.
dass die USA viele Gesichter hat.
Which personal expectations did you have in those days concerning for the further development of this friendship?
Die Frage Anfang der 90er Jahre, wie halten
In the beginning of the 90s, I wondered if the contacts established during the Cold War will remain in the coming times. Not only concerning the USA, but throughout the other Western allies. All networked continuously and organized celebrations in the city. For me, the continuation of the spirit of solidarity towards Berlin was an important sign that we tried to pass on the next generation.
Eigentlich ein wichtiges Zeichen gewesen, was man versucht hat, an die nächste Generation weiterzugeben.
Which expectations and wishes do you have today? I confess that sometimes I don't understand the USA. What I understand are the different dimensions of this nation. Even the dissatisfaction from parts of the population, feeling left behind, and hence preferring a kind of politics that is aligned to me. But the view on the USA should not only be orientated just on one part of the population, but towards the nation as a whole. And that nation presents itself to me as very multifaceted, very colorful, and very active. Always loud when it comes to its own interests, and what particularly impresses me is the fact that the USA as a country is always reinventing itself. Doing this with a power and a force so we could say hello. A little bit of it would also be good in Germany. Please tell us the story behind a selected photography from the year 1990. On this photo you can see Christine Bergmann, who became later Minister of Youth and Family, and me. We are dancing during the Berlin SPD party convention, which merged East and West Party. At this convention, Christine Bergmann and I were elected as vice party chairs of the state of Berlin. For me, the Social Democratic Party in West Berlin, the party of Willy Brandt, was a party I followed on TV. That party that also supported the big bridge to the USA. Unforgotten is the joint ride of John F. Kennedy and Willy Brandt through West Berlin. Kennedy's legendary words, "Ich bin ein Berliner," is enshrined in the hearts of Berliners. My mother, living in West Berlin, followed my father out of love to East Berlin. She was happy seeing her son becoming part of this Berlin Social Democratic Party that she remembered as the one from Willy Brandt. Well, Christine Bergmann and me, both part of the Eastern Socialist Party, became finally part of the whole Berlin Socialist Party. That was just pure joy that ended in a great dance, finally swapping dancing partners, so that we also waltzed with the West Berlin Sozis.
Natürlich haben wir dann alle Partner getauscht und auch mit den Westberliner Sozis ordentlich einen Walzer getanzt.